So we're going to give it just a couple more minutes. We see that attendees are still getting on. So if you don't mind, just hold out for one more minute and then we'll get started. Thank you.
I have to get back on.
Okay, everyone, I'm trying to get my slides to show. And Retha, can you please mute your, yeah, there you go. Thank you. Okay, let me see if I can try sharing my screen one more time. Can people see my slide now? Yay, okay. Perfect timing, let's begin. You are joining the OASAS SAPT Supplemental Grant Information Session, specifically on expense reports. This will talk about how you get your expense reports, what you do with them, what they look like, many things involving the expense reports. My name again is Deborah Davis. I'm the Associate Commissioner of the Division of Fiscal Administration here at OASAS. Before we get started, I will just go over
Debbie, I think you're muted.
Debbie, I think that you're muted.
Okay. Thank you, L'Oreal. So I am not quite sure where I was muted. I guess maybe the whole time. So I'll start from the beginning. Welcome to the OASAS SAPT Supplemental Grant Information Session. This is my third, but apparently I still haven't learned how to do the mute and the unmute, so bear with me. But anyway, this presentation is specifically on expense reports. We will have our experts in the agency sharing with you, how you get them, how you use them, what they look like. So we're really excited to bring you this information. Again, and I'm Deborah Davis. I'm the Associate Commissioner for the Division of Fiscal Administration here at OASAS. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. I'm really having a hard time getting this to work today. I can't seem to get it to go to the next slide. Let's see. So let's see, can I do it this way? Are you guys seeing a different slide, L'Oreal? Okay, great. Okay. So sorry about that. Yeah. So before we get started, I just want to let you know your lines are muted. If you need to share anything with us during the presentation, please use the chat function. At the end, we will have a Q&A session, and then you can submit your questions through the Q&A panel. All questions, whether they were answered or unanswered during today's meeting, we will share the answers. So your unanswered questions will be addressed, and all Q&As will be shared in a follow-up email with a Q&A document that will be attached to that email, but also a link will be in that email to show you where those answers are uploaded to our SAPT supplemental website, which is, part of the OASAS website, and along with a copy of this video. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists. And actually, let me introduce our panelists. First, I'll turn it over to introduce to our panelists that will be speaking, which is Amy Addison, who is the Supervisor of Administrative Analysis here at the Division of Fiscal Administration. And then once Amy goes, I'll continue along to introduce you to many of the people who help make the SAPT supplemental grant initiatives and contracts work, along with our subject matter experts from the agency. So first, Amy, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Amy Addison. I am the supervisor over the Financial Management Bureau, which consists of multiple payment units as well as travel. Of course, the big one that you guys are here to listen about is the Supplemental SAPT payment unit.
Thank you. And L'Oreal?
Hi, my name is L'Oreal Aldi. I'm the project director over the SAPT supplemental grant.
Thank you. And I see Sean is on. Sean, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. This is Sean Byrne. I'm from OASAS. I'm joining Debbie and the rest of the team today. These sessions on SAPT SUP implementation are very valuable and constructive in terms of helping us get all of this money out and in the field so that it provides the best help. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you, Sean. Retha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Retha Doyle Miller, and I am the senior accountant in the SAPT unit.
Thank you. Angela?
Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Brooks. I supervise the State Aid Payments Unit, which includes the supplemental.
Thank you. And Joel?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Joel Bouillon. I'm a project manager in the Division of Prevention and Problem Gambling Services. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Joel. And I see Maggie's on.
Everyone, Dr. Maggie Taylor. I'm the Assistant Director of the Housing Bureau here at OASAS.
Thank you. And also last, but certainly not least, is our person who's made this WebEx possible and is on our team. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Deb. I'm Adam Kirkman. I am a project coordinator on the SAPT. I assist L'Oreal in contracting or the treatment side of things.
Excellent. So we've all introduced ourselves, but I'm now going to turn it back over to Amy so we can start talking about expense reports.
Okay, so today we're going to walk through the process from the time you receive your fully executed contract through the creation of expense reports. And the example that I'll be using today is part of the workforce initiative. So when you receive your contract, fully executed contract, you will have your attachment B, which is your budget for the initiative. You can see it shows the budget period, the contract number, your agency code, your provider name, as well as the initiative name.
Hey, Amy?
Yes.
We're having technical difficulty. We're not seeing your screen yet. Yeah, so when you go to share screen up at the top, it'll give you a choice of 1, 2, or 3, and those will show up on your screen to which one you want to share. See if that makes a difference.
So what are you seeing?
It's blank.
Yeah, we're seeing a gray screen. It does say we're seeing something of yours, though.
You might want to hit stop sharing and then
Oh,
start.
here it comes. Here it comes.
It was there partially and then it went away. Having trouble with that application. You might just want to share the screen it's on. There we go.
There you go.
Is
It's
that
on.
it? Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So you can see from the B1 that it shows you the budget period, your contract number over here, your agency code, your provider name, the initiative, as well as all your budget numbers. Now, once the fully executed contract is received by the accounts payable group, your 25% advance payment will be calculated. Most of the initiatives have a 25% advance included, which you can see in the D1, where it would state that you would receive a 25% advance. Once everything is calculated, which usually occurs within 2 weeks, we would send you an email which includes your payment worksheet, which shows the calculation based off your budget of record, which was the $300,000, and the 25% equals $75,000. And within the email, it would explain what is attached. So it would be your 25% worksheet as well as a blank expense report for your use. Now, here's a blank expense report. And we are currently sending them to you with the agency code filled in, as well as the contractor name, contractor number, the program number, the budget
Amy?
period. Yes?
The expense report didn't come up yet.
Okay. Have you seen it yet? Did it come up yet?
No, the other ones came up good, so maybe it's just a matter of share again. There you go.
Okay, so here's the expense report, and when you receive it, it should have the agency code, your contractor name, your contract number, the program with the index, as well as the start and expiration date of the budget period, and your approved budget filled in. If you are using a blank form that you may have gotten off of the website, you will need to include and enter all this information, which is on your B1, which can be located on your B1. So once you receive your expense report, your initial, you would do an interim, unless it's the final, which usually your initial wouldn't be a final. So you would click the interim. If we want to put the period that the expenses are covering, and then we'll just throw some numbers in here. Oops. So this is the, because that's the, so this would be under the submitted claim column is where you would enter. So we'd be, say 50,000, 25,000, 1,000. So if we go through each individual line, personal services. So personal services, if you have any recruitment and retention, you would fill out page 2 of the recruitment and retention roster, which I completed this in advance. You will notice that the period covered from the first page transfers over to the top of this page. And you would put the employee's name, their CFR title code, their annual salary, which would tell you the limit that they're eligible for, and then the current amount you paid in recruitment and retention. Now you'll notice that this totals $50,000, which is what is submitted on the claim. Keep in mind that the total of the recruitment and retention should be equal to or less than the total personal services. And that the payments made must be within the period covered by the report as well as the budget period. Besides the recruitment and retention, there is no other documentation required for personal services, but it is required to be maintained by the provider or contractor claiming. So the FICA and fringe benefits, that also does not require documentation for submission of the expense report. However, it must be maintained by the provider and contractor claiming. OTPS, otherwise known as the other than personal services. You must submit invoices and supporting documentation to account for the total submitted claim amount under OTPS. Liabilities must have been incurred during the budget period and payment must have been made within the period covered on the submitted expense report. If there are contractual services or other consultant documentation, it must include the vendor invoice containing the person or organization being paid, the amount paid, and a brief description of the goods or services purchased, the date paid, as well as the method of payment. Equipment documentation is required. You must submit invoices and backup documentation, including the receipt or other proof of payment to account for the total submitted claim amount for equipment. Property and space, the documentation is required. You must submit invoices and documentation, including receipt or other proof of payment to account for the total submitted claim amount for property and space. Some examples would be, an example would be renovation costs. The agency admin, no documentation is required for submission of the expense report. However, it is required to be maintained by the provider or contractor claiming. I want to stress this total revenue line should be 0. Please do not report your advance payment as a revenue, and do not include your advance payment as part of the submitted claims. Okay, so to show the previously claimed, so this covered the period January through February, and if you were to create another expense report after that, it would cover the period from March 1st through the end of March, and the previously claimed amounts would equal the total year-to-date claimed from the previous expense report. Again, do not report any advance payments in previously claimed. And the year-to-date claimed is a calculation. It's based on the information that's entered under the submitted claim or the previous claim. Once you have your form completed, be sure to have your name and title, have it signed, dated, the email address of the preparer, and all completed expense reports are to be emailed to the COVID funds vouchers mailbox. Just a couple notes in reference to any documentation submitted. All documentation must be legible. All records and documentation must be maintained by the contractor to support all expenses incurred in performance of this contract, including those for which no supporting documentation is required for submission as part of an expense report. Any incorrect or incomplete expense reports or supporting documentation will be returned for correction. Until completed documentation is received, no additional payments will be made. All supporting documentation must be identified by the budget category, which would be either PS, FICA and Fringe, OTPS, equipment, property space, or agency admin. So the payment information must also be included in reference to the payment date and the payment method. If it was paid by check, indicate the check number, and if a credit card payment was made, please include the last 4 digits of the credit card. The invoices and supporting documentation must be equal to or greater than the amount claimed for reimbursement for OTPS, equipment, and property and space. Otherwise, the expense report and all supporting documentation will be returned for correction. Here are a few email addresses that may be helpful for questions, if you have questions. So the COVID funds mailbox is for any AP funding initiative questions. COVID vouchers mailbox is where you would submit your vouchers, otherwise known as expense reports, for reimbursement, and the COVID AP funds mailbox for any payment questions. If you have any questions on how to submit CFR information, you can contact the CFRS at oasis.com.ny.gov email address for any CFR questions.
Amy, thank you very much. I did want to just have you reiterate again, kind of the beginning of the process, just for people who may have joined late. Just how does one get their expense report? What triggers that? Like once they get an executed contract, then what happens?
Okay, so they would receive their executed contract. The accounts payable unit would receive a copy of the executed contract. Once the contract is received by accounts payable, we would calculate the 25% advance, and an email would be sent including the payment worksheet and a blank expense report.
Thank you. And another thing I just wanted to add is that on the OASAS website, under the SAPT Supplemental Grant Initiatives, once an expense report has been, created, once an initiative has been awarded and, contracts are going out, a blank expense report gets added, to that, listing of the initiative. And we are right now going through that website just to make sure everything is updated, for that section. But that is another way that you can see an expense report as well.
And there is a tab for instructions on all expense reports that goes through each part of it in case you have questions.
So is this the point of question and answer time, Amy? Are we at that point?
Yes, I would think so.
Okay.
So Amy, we've had a few questions. One of them was, how should they be receiving their expense report via email, which I believe you just covered. And we have a second question, says, do we need to send payroll registers for backup of personal services?
No, but they need to be maintained by the contractor provider.
And then the next question is, how often?
So I wanted to add to that, just quick, I know it's kind of separate thinking, but for us, but I just wanted to share for recruitment and retention, what do they have to provide?
They have to supply the recruitment and retention roster, the page 2 of the expense report.
Right. But as Amy did point out, for all other documentation on your personal services, it will be maintained and should be easily pulled up upon audit over the course of the next 10 years. Thanks, Angela. Go ahead with the next question, please.
How often should expense reports be submitted?
No more than once a month. It's the provider contractor's discretion, but no more than once a month.
Yes, and I really like that question, and I wanted to just share that we are also seeing where there are occasions where we're not receiving anything yet, and it's been a few months that an executed contract has been in place, and so we will be working with our counterparts in the program area to be reaching out to providers, because you don't want to get backed up on your paperwork and submitting expense reports. So although we don't want them more than once a month, we definitely don't want to wait 6 months or even a year. So hopefully you can get a good frequency that works for you. And so that, also that helps us reimburse you and continue the cash flow.
All right. And then the next question was, do we submit claims monthly?
Yes, you can.
All right. The next one is, we have budgeted for hazard pay and longevity pay, which was paid via payroll fringe. Do these expenses get included on the recruitment and retention tab? If yes, do we leave the employee's annual salary column blank, as there is no 10% cap for those payments?
The recruitment and retention roster should only include recruitment and retention payments. It should not include any other type of payroll payment.
All right.
And if you look on, for instance, the follow-up expense report, this is based on only recruitment and retention, which it shows the prior expenses that were paid, so the prior payments to the employees, and it will not allow you to pay more than the 10% or the max of 10,000, not to exceed 10,000. If like for the first employee, if I try to enter $1,000, you get an error message stating you cannot pay that person that dollar amount, or you cannot claim that dollar amount, I should say.
All right, the next question is completed expense report to be submitted as a PDF file only or Excel?
Excel makes it easier for us if you have a lot of, depending upon which form you're completing, if you have recruitment and retention expense reports, if it comes through as Excel, it makes it easier for us to sort, to make sure that you don't have any duplicate employees listed, or to verify the amount. But either way, we'll accept.
All right, the next question is when do we submit expense reports?
When you have expenses that you would like to be reimbursed for, and no more than once a month.
And you know, as we're talking this through, something occurred to me that I'll just throw out there too. So if you've received an advance, right, and so you now are spending money, and maybe you got, maybe you have, you know, $100,000 and you've been advanced $25,000. You know, even if you've only spent $12,000 in the first month, you should submit that. And that goes towards your advance spending down the advance money. And then, you know, the next month submit more. And eventually you will have submitted claims that add up to the advance in my example, which is 25,000. Then once you've, you know, gone past the advance amount, your next claims, you'll submit whatever amount it is, and you'll start receiving reimbursement payments. So just wanted you to know you're not held to like waiting until you've spent the total amount of the advance. You can submit in a month and just keep paying down that advance with your claims. Hopefully I've made sense, but Amy, if there, or Angela, if there's anything to add to sort of my example, please, you know, share.
Oh, that's agreed.
All right. We have a question that says, can the budgeted amounts be modified within the individual lines as long as the total budget does not exceed the total budget?
So the answer to that is yes. Thank you for raising that question.
Where can we obtain an expense form?
Oh, you know what, Angela, I just wanted to
Yeah.
say, you know, because I didn't want to like just say yes, I guess. In our Q&A, we will provide more information on how you can do that, the process. But yes, that you can do that.
The next question was, where can we obtain an expense form?
You can, if you haven't received one with your advance payment, you can, which you should have because we send them out with every advance payment, you can either email the COVID Funds AP mailbox and request one, or there is a blank form, depending upon the initiative, there's blank forms out on our website.
The next question is retention 10 years or 7 years?
The documentation retention, I'm
Yeah,
assuming?
sorry about that. Yeah, I said 10 because I mixed up my grants. So it's really 7 years. Thank you for raising that question to allow me to clarify.
All right, the next question is there a deadline cutoff for claim submissions?
Well, in the,
It is 45
in the,
days upon close of the contract period.
yeah, that's the,
Sorry,
if
Amy.
you, for submitting a final, yes. You can't submit more than 45 days past the end of the contract period.
Yeah, yeah, I also, I'm thinking about what the person may have meant by that question. And I jumped in and I'm sorry about that, but I was also thinking, you know, what's important is that, and Amy went over this, is when you're filling out your expense report and you put your time period that that expense report is for, right? The expenses should be for that time period. So if you're submitting a paid invoice for, you know, something that would go on your other than personal service line, and it is dated a different date than what your expense report time period is, then, you know, that kind of is not, you know, then that one, we'd have to send that back because that couldn't be included in your submission. I'm not sure if that's what you were talking about, but in general, related to, you know, is there a deadline, a super cutoff for when you can't submit claims anymore? Then the answer that was provided, which is 45 days after the end of the contract period, is when, you know, that final submission of claims. And it is listed in the D1 of the contract.
All right. There's something in the Q&A from Patrick. It's not really a question. I'm not sure if he was responding to something that we went over. So I'm gonna skip over that one. The next one is the 25% advance ever noted on the claim form? So the final year-to-date claim won't equal the full contract total, correct?
Not quite sure. Your expenses is what you should be reporting, and you should have expenses that will total your total contract. The 25% advance is just an advance that you have the money in advance, but you have the expenses after that, like Deb explained, eats up your advance. So your expenses should equal the total budgeted amount at the end of the contract.
Yeah, so the expense reports are actually, you know, made up to equal your total approved budget, right? Because that's really what you're being approved for, to receive reimbursement on. You're not being approved to receive reimbursement on your 25% advance. You're getting the full budget. So the expense reports hold you accountable to the full budget, right? What the 25% advance holds you to is that we won't send you more money until you've submitted receipts that are equal to the 25% advance. And then at the point where you submit your next claim that is for more money than your 25% advance, that's when you'll start getting reimbursed dollars again. So hopefully that helps explain that. But we'll also have, you know, we'll put all that in the Q&A too.
All right. If we have 3 budgets within our contract, do we submit one form or 3 separate forms?
You have to submit an expense report for each program per initiative. So I'm thinking you have 3 programs with multiple initiatives.
Right, but they'll also receive an expense report for each of those as well, right, Amy?
Correct. If they have workforce stabilization, and we make the 25%, anytime a 25% advance is paid out, an email with the 25% payment worksheet, as well as a blank expense report for each program that they're receiving an advance for.
And also, for more, personalized questions, if there's something really specific, you can send your question to the COVID Funds AP mailbox, include your contract number, your provider number, and then your question. And we will certainly, provide you a more personalized answer if there's something really specific. But these questions are great, I think, because they are really broad enough to affect everyone. Thanks, Angela, go ahead.
All right. The next one's about budget modifications. Who do they submit them to?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it was kind of alluded to talking about moving lines around. So we're going to give a detailed explanation in the Q&A document, just because it's a different process than just working on the expense report. So we'll provide that and yeah, in the Q&As. Thank you.
Is it required to submit a monthly claim, or can we submit one final claim?
We don't recommend one final claim in case there's issues. I would suggest submitting at least a few.
And the next question is the payment?
Actually, sorry, Angela.
Yep.
If you have fully, I should say, if you have fully spent your full budget, you can submit a final claim, just a final claim. If you've already spent all the money, then yes, one final claim submitted is fine before the end of the contract period.
All right, the next one says, did I understand correctly the payment is limited to 10% of annual salary?
For recruitment and retention, yes. 10%, not to exceed 10,000. And that's over all initiatives. Any initiative that has recruitment and retention, the total amount cannot exceed 10,000, 10% or over 10,000.
Okay. The next one is, can we claim salaries and personal services? And if so, is it subject to the 10% annual salary cap and or the $10,000 cap that applies to recruitment and retention expenses?
The 10%, $10,000 restriction is for recruitment and retention.
Right, and just to reemphasize, so workforce and stabilization had recruitment and retention. So though if you have a contract with that is what we're referring to. But other personal service expenses are not limited to that.
Okay. Do we include the advanced payment, previous invoice payments on the revenue line for consecutive invoices?
No, you should not include the advance payment on the revenue line. You should only be recording the expenses.
All right. you please repeat whether or not we should submit expense reports for funds spent thus far, even though it does not exceed the 25% advance?
Yes, you can. If you have any expenses to claim, you can submit an expense report whether or not it exceeds the 25% advance you've already received.
All right. And then this one's back to budget modifications. Who is the contacting department for approvals of budget modifications?
So we're going to send out all that information about the budget modifications in our Q&A. So we're going to have it all housed in one place. We'll have how to contact, how it works. So we'll just keep it in that one spot. And then if we see that there's a lot of questions, we'll see if we need to do more. And thank you for raising the question.
Will this webinar be posted on your website for further reference?
Yes, all of them are, and they're under the SAPT information sessions section of the OASAS website, and then you click on that and it will show the date. So this is the June 8th presentation, and when you click on that, it'll say the full name of the presentation, and it'll start the talking right away. And the Q&As are also posted there as well.
All right. And the last one is, what is the latest time to send a budget modification?
And we're going to have it all laid out, but this helps us know that this is a question. So we're going to get that all out to you and then make sure that we've addressed all of your questions. And if there's any new ones, there'll be a place to send those.
Angela, just letting you know, there are a lot of questions in the chat. Sending them over to you. So if you haven't seen those, take a look.
No, I haven't. All right, and then we have one more in the Q&A. Just want to confirm that we need to submit supporting documents like invoice and payment remittance for OTPS, equipment, and property, along with the expense report.
Yes.
No supporting documents required for PS, fringe benefits, and agency admin, right?
That's correct, except if you have recruitment and retention under personal services, then you would need to complete the recruitment and retention payment roster and include that. And you should be maintaining any documentation for PS, fringe, or agency admin at your location.
So I've started reading the ones in the chat. There is one from all boroughs / counties, Fryman, and it's they have a question about a specific grant that they have received or a purchase order. So could you please submit that question to the COVID funds mailbox? Would you be so kind, Amy, as to put those mailboxes back up? So please submit that question, include your provider number, your contract number, or it looks like you have a purchase order, put the purchase order number in, and then submit that question, and we'll look into it, because the information is just not enough to provide a comprehensive answer to you. We appreciate you submitting that and adding the added information, and we'll get back to you. The next question is, are SAPT workforce and infrastructure included with a funded program's monthly advance? And the answer is no. It's paid separately. The next one is, how should these grants be reported on the CFR? So that is a question that can be answered, but you can submit it to the cfrs@oasis.ny.gov. And we will also include information about it in the Q&As so that it's all just in one place. Just confirming that we are entering numbers under previously claimed column instead of submitted claim column.
Nope, you would be entering under the submitted claim column for the period that the expense report pertains to.
Thank you.
If it's a second or third expense report, then you would put the previously claimed information, such as like looking at this, the year-to-date claimed from the previous expense report would go under the previously claimed column.
Right, so just to restate that, you're going to put your new claimed amount in the submitted claim. And those new claims will be for the time period that is listed under period covered for this report. So those are the new claims. And then in previous claimed, that's where you would put your claims from your last expense report submitted. That was it, right?
Yes.
Okay. I believe that we have answered all the questions in both the Q&A and in the chat. These were really, really great questions. I thank you to my panelists and to my presenter, Amy, and to all the help we had in setting up this WebEx. And we will send you an announcement when we've got this up on the website. It usually takes about a week, maybe 2 weeks, but we look forward to bringing you all this information so you have it at your fingertips. And again, thank you for making this a really informative discussion. Have a really good rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you.